There can be a really tricky divide to navigate when you have a lot of high school cheerleaders in your gym. It can be even harder when you don't coach the team, and maybe you don't get along with that high school coach all that great. Guys, today on this episode of the Full Out Cheer podcast, I'm going to be talking about the great cheer divide, the divide between high school cheerleading and all-star. My name's Danielle, and I'm your host today. Thank you for joining me, you guys. This has been a really fast week, actually. So if you guys are like me, I am just a couple weeks out from our annual showcase. We have really grown our showcase over the years. It has become kind of this huge production. We rent out the university and we do it in their gym. Lots and lots of seats in there. We open our ticket sales October 1st. You can pre-order your tickets. This year we offered a VIP option so that there's some better seating options available for those who want to pay a little bit more. And yeah, it is a big production. And then that morning we do our team photos. We have Jerry Hughes Photography. He comes in and does his setup in there. And then he is kind enough to also do some action shots for us for our showcase. So we've added a couple of really cool things this year. And one of those, we have quite a few high schools that are coming to do showcase and to do performances. And if you're thinking like, man, I don't know that I could get a ton of high schools because we just don't have those relationships or like they are not interested. You know, that was honestly us a few years ago as well. And so if that's something that's important to you to build that relationship, like keep listening because I'm going to tell you how we have improved that relationship over the years with the high school coaches and why it was kind of tricky in the first place. One of the cool things, so we have this year, there are 10 school teams that are going to come do performances, a couple of middle schools, a youth organization, and then quite a few high schools from like Central Missouri and one from South Kansas City area. And so I'm really excited because this shows a lot of my younger athletes, like what can they do with this if they stick with it? Then the university has their cheer team that comes in and their dance team that comes in. Usually like they're really good. And so it shows my kids like stick with this because you can cheer in college if you wanted to. This year we're doing something really cool. I spent part of last night and then my morning doing some banners. So we are actually printing banners for each of the school teams that are coming in. And it says Superior Cheer Team or Superior Dance Team. A lot of the schools around here don't compete. And so this is an opportunity for them to take something back to their high school. You know, the football teams do it, the baseball teams do it, but it's a chance for them to take something back to their high school. And very discreetly in the bottom right corner is my logo, albeit it's small. But I'm excited because it will have our branding of the Mid-Missouri Cheer and Dance Showcase. If you're wondering, like, why don't we call it the Twister Showcase? I don't know. It kind of became something over time that I really wanted to expand. And like, the more our community sees this love for cheerleading and sees the growth of cheerleading, like the more kids are going to want to cheer. So that's my showcase. My brain has just been really wrapped in it for the last couple of weeks. I'm sure you guys are on the verge of competition season and you are kind of doing all the things right now. Maybe you're listening to this podcast while you're doing competition registrations or while you're trying to revise 8-count sheets, or you're just driving in the car like, okay, I need to do something for a little bit other than coaching and thinking about teams, which is ironic because we're going to talk about teams. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and get into this. I want to talk today about the great cheer divide. When I first opened my gym in 2013, our average age in the gym I think we had about 125 athletes, you know, pretty early on the first couple of months. And the average age in the gym was about 7 or 8 years old. I think my oldest kid at the time was maybe 12, maybe 13. We didn't have this big high school presence. There had been another gym in town, and that other gym had been around for like 10 years when we opened. A lot of the high school athletes went to that gym. In fact, when I opened my gym, some of them had just graduated high school and they came and coached for us. And so we just didn't really have that older kid thing. Like it wasn't as attractive to the older kids, and it took a couple of years. I'm here to say though, I like how we grew it. If we had had these 15, 16-year-old kids, 17-year-old kids in our gym from day one, I think it can be a tricky age range to coach. I think you have to have a lot of credibility. I think you have to be very confident in the decisions you're making and in the things you do. And that can be really hard as a brand new gym owner. I was 25 at the time. And so on top of that, being a brand new gym owner and having kids that are going to question essentially everything you do could have been very tricky for us. And so I'm really glad, that we started with this younger age group and kind of made our way up to a position where we have a little bit more age diversity in the gym. Back then, we just, my kids, I think our oldest was maybe like 11 and he was nothing to do with cheerleading. His brother, who ended up cheering All-Star for a couple of years, like at the time, just nothing to do with cheerleading and definitely nothing to do with high school cheer. Played a year of football, a year of wrestling, but nothing with cheer. I really didn't get a lot of experience with anything with the high schools. And to be honest, I almost kind of out of sight, out of mind because my kids weren't in it. And then about 6 years ago, our older daughter was in 8th grade and she was really pushing because she really wanted to make the high school cheer team. And she was really pushing because she wanted to make varsity. And at our school, we don't compete. We're the only all-star gym in town. At the time, there had been other gyms. Megan was like she worked hard. She was working hard on motions. I was working with her because, in All-Star, we don't do a lot of stuff with high school and collegiate type motions. She had been working on her jumps. She had been, doing the school fight song like 8,000 times a day. I literally have a video of her practicing it down an aisle at Home Depot because, she was stuck there with dad and it was the week before tryouts. She had just gotten her full. She was all in. She could not wait for tryouts. And when tryouts rolled around, she made JV. And there were lots of kids that appeared to have less skills, at least in the all-star realm. They had way less skills who had made varsity. And it put kind of a sour taste in her mouth for a while because for her, it was really heartbreaking because she wanted to be at those Friday night football games. And for me, it was honestly, it was kind of frustrating because I know skills. And even when it comes to sideline, I've coached sideline before, I know skills. It was hard to accept that this kid who had so many skills, she was a great jumper, she was good at motion, she was good with choreography, she was a great tumbler, powerhouse of a tumbler. It was really hard to accept that she was going to be on JV. I think it created in my mind just a bit of negativity toward the high school teams and the way they did it. And the coach at the time, it turned out for the couple of years that person coached, didn't believe that freshmen should be on a varsity team. And so I feel like it just created, I don't know, some negativity in me. And I didn't want a lot to do with the high school. Outside of being a parent, I didn't want a lot to do with high school cheerleading. It didn't feel credible to me. And then, over the next couple of years, there were a lot of changes to coaching at the high school. It wasn't until last year when my youngest was a freshman, she tried out with actually less, I would say on the tumbling end, less skills than her sister had, but it was a new coach. And so the coach placed her on varsity and I got really engaged with the program itself on the parent end. And it was kind of around that time last year that I started thinking we need to develop better relationships, if nothing else, so that we can help these coaches in any way we can and set these kids up for success. So let's talk a little bit about the conflicts that you may have experienced if you are an all-star coach or an all-star cheer gym owner. It seems like in our industry, we have two types of relationships. The ones where the all-star coaches are also the high school coaches. And so they are very integrated with the high schools, or I have some gym owners I work with who coach at the collegiate level or maybe even middle school. And so they're very integrated and obviously great relationships because they work together and maybe school teams come and train in your gym. I know in the South and the Pacific Northwest, that seems to be a thing. Here, I don't know, our high schools don't compete. So they don't really need a lot of space to go do their practice. And so it hasn't been that big of a thing. Some of the high schools compete, but they just kind of practice on their mats in their gym and then go compete. But it seems like that's kind of one side of this. Or the other side is I hear, gym owners who are just frustrated. They're like, man, I can't win when it comes to high school because these kids all want to do Friday night football. They want to cheer on the sidelines. They want to do the stuff that is cool in high school. And no matter how the program is, they are prioritizing high school cheer over all-star. And these coaches get really frustrated, whether those high school coaches are are qualified or not, these all-star coaches and owners get frustrated. And so I think that can be really hard for people. Some of the things we've experienced over the years, I would say, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, we had athletes who created a bit of a riff between us and high school cheer because they would kind of tell what was convenient for them, right? So if we had an extra practice and the high school coach called a practice at the same time, these kids wouldn't say, oh, hey, coach, actually, our all-star team already has a practice at that time. They wouldn't say anything until the very last minute and be like, well, all-star scheduled it first. Or they would come to us and be like, well, we have a high school cheer practice. But they wouldn't look ahead 2 weeks. They would tell you 5 minutes before practice. And it did create some frustration. There were also unrealistic expectations on both ends. Parents who were used to our style of communication, who then their kids joined high school cheer, and it was totally different types of pricing. And why would you pay X number of dollars for a uniform that you have to give back? That's one that has always been tricky for my all-star parents is we pay $280 for a high school cheer uniform, but we have to give it back every year and it's got no bling on it. And so I think that those things can cause some frustration between parents, and then it kind of overflows into the all-star realm. You also find athletes who aren't showing respect to coaches, whether it's the high school coaches or the all-star coaches. Years ago, the year that my older daughter was a freshman, the coach would come in and she didn't have a cheer background. Our school district is interesting in that they really like you to have a teacher's certification to coach at the high school level. It's not required by the state, but it is something that I guess the district prefers. And so a lot of times they're looking for teachers within the district that have any level of cheerleading experience. And so that can be hard because if you don't have teachers that have a high level of cheerleading experience, you find people that have danced before, and so now they're going to coach cheer. Or they themselves cheered in high school but have never coached it, and it's been 20 years, and now they're going to coach. I think that can be tricky too because, when my older daughter was a freshman, she came home, she's like, I'm just so frustrated. The coach wanted us to do a suspended front flip, and she's like, and she called it that flippy thing. She's like, I have a hard time respecting a coach that isn't even able to use the right terminology. And she said, when they would go up and they would do an extended lib, the coach would call it a passe. I need you to go up and hit your passe. And she's like, it's just this, my older daughter who's a freshman at the time, she's like, it's just frustrating. I can understand how that divide can happen, and I've experienced it myself. And then you get into these situations, and we had this, 7 or 8 years ago where we had hired this girl who had kind of grown up a little bit in our program, and she was coaching our preschool classes, and she called and told my co-owner, she's like, hey, I just have this terrible headache. I just threw up. I think I need to stay home sick. And my co-owner's like, oh, okay. Did you have a sore throat? Do you think you have the flu? She's like, no, I fell at cheerleading and hit my head, and I went to the bathroom and threw up and just got this really bad headache, but the coach made me come out and finish practice. And so I just finished, and now I think I need to go home. The lights are hurting my eyes and stuff. And it was really hard for us because we were like, oh my gosh, you have a concussion. That's not even a mild one at that point. If you're throwing up and you feel that badly, you need to go rest. You encounter these situations that can put this negative reflection in your mind, and it's really hard to overcome those, and it takes a long time. So if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I am the high school coach and this sounds like all-star. Yeah, I think both can absolutely be true. Whether you're on one side or the other, those relationships can be really strained by circumstances and a lack of education. So here's why it matters, right? We're 16 minutes into this. Here's why it matters. At the end of the day, you guys, the high school coaches and the all-star coaches have a shared mission. None of us want these kids to suffer. None of us want them to have, these poor childhoods where they don't develop character skills and they can't get into colleges or whatever they want to do after high school. Nobody wants that for these kids. We want kids who are going to be confident, have the skills that if they want to go to college or they need the scholarships, they have the skills and the potential and the grades to get there. We want kids who can graduate high school and they're not dropping out of high school at 16 years old. We all want kids who are going to have good character and be respectful and be respectable. And so whether you're a high school coach or an all-star coach, both of us want the same things for these kids. You may both want to win your competitions. You may both understand the need for attendance, but at the end of the day, like none of that is the real mission. The real mission is that we're like raising adults. It's important that we can maintain a cooperative relationship on the business end and the professional end so that we have more cross enrollment and more ability to build the sport of cheerleading in our communities on both ends. When programs get along, everyone wins. You know, I used to be afraid before my kids cheered, I used to be afraid that they would get to high school and they would quit. And they would quit because high school cheer was so much better or so much more fun to be on the sidelines in front of all their friends and stuff like that. What I realized over time is that if they're going to quit for high school cheer, then they're going to quit for high school cheer. It's going to happen regardless of the All-Star program. And it goes both ways. I've had kids quit high school cheer for All-Star. I think All-Star having such a demanding season, a long, year-round season, and it's quite demanding during like December to April. I think that can be really hard for kids. We don't always play nice with other sports. So, I had a mandatory event and I had a girl with a cross country meet and I'm like, I'm sorry, your whole stunt group, your whole pyramid is kind of relying on you being there. And that can be hard for these kids. A lot of high schools will work with them with other sports. My daughter last year played tennis and cheer, and she was able to do both for the high school. Whereas it can be hard if you're an all-star coach and you're trying to put together these routines and you're trying to build these teams that will be competitive and the attendance kind of lacks because these kids are trying to do all the things. And I think a lot of times that can lead to coaches getting territorial. That is my athlete, my practice comes first, my. I think what it ultimately does over time is it creates a negative relationship between the high school coaches and the all-star coaches. And ultimately, it puts the parents and the kids in the middle. There's definitely something to be said for like, you can't do everything in life. But if you manage your time well and you prioritize things that are important to you, then you can do an awful lot. I'm here to say, like, I own a gym, I own Next Gen, we have a website company. Justin and I take several vacations a year. We have 4 kids. We travel for the holidays. We have a horse. We have 3 dogs. That was an accident. We can't say no to German Shepherd puppies. We have all these things going on. Like, we volunteer with church sometimes and we're involved in the community. Like, you can do all the things if you're good at doing all the things because you value your time and you manage your time well. And so when athletes want to do all the things, I support that. My 15-year-old does all-star cheer. She's on one team. She is on our all-star dance team also. She is a coach of an all-star team at the gym. She did choreography for another gym's all-star dance team this year and choreography for one of our dance teams. She plays high school soccer. She's on varsity high school cheer. Last year, she did ROTC on top of all that stuff. Like, she had all these things going, and it just required her to be really good with time management. But I think that when kids are not good with time management, we feel very territorial and we get very frustrated. But we have to remember that mission that we have, that shared mission for the kids, has to come above everything else. So let me give you a few ways just quickly here that you guys can build those relationships with the high schools. So first of all, if you have a poor relationship with the high school, I'm here to tell you, you have to start with a conversation. You have to get that communication out and explain, be less worried. This is how I tell my 15-year-old when she's dealing with conflict. Be less worried about somebody hearing your side and seek for understanding. Am I good at that? No, I'm not. But I'm going to tell you to be good at it, okay? Because every time I am in a situation with conflict, I just want somebody to understand how I'm feeling, but it's just as important that you understand how somebody else is feeling. So if you've had those conflicts before, sit down and have those conversations. My guess is that a lot of that conflict is the result of kids who have poorly managed their time. And so you're getting half stories. Sometimes you may feel like the high school coach isn't qualified in that position, or high school coaches, you may feel like, what the heck is this person doing running an all-star gym? And I think it's important that we remember, like, nobody knows everything about cheerleading, right? The people I respect the most in cheerleading are still learning. The Corey Ricketts and the Ramels and the Sean and Callie and all these people that teach at these camps and clinics, like, they're forever learning. There's no reason that I can't be forever learning and I can't be helping somebody else learn as well. And we need to be able to share that knowledge because there's probably other knowledge that these people have that I don't have. One of the things, like in our school district where you essentially have to be a teacher, you have to have a teaching certificate at the moment to be a high school cheer coach. Maybe there are times that I do know more about cheerleading than somebody else, but they probably know more in other ways about dealing with children than I do. They have a formal education in education. Yeah, I took a couple classes and then I was like, this is not for me. Being a teacher in a classroom all day is not for me. Love coaching because kids love to be there, but not everybody loves to be at school. So not for me. They have a level of education and a different type of education than what I have, and you have to value those things. It's important that you give support when you can. So I'm going to give a quick rundown of the things that we've done over the past couple of years to show support to the high school teams. Even when the relationship wasn't great, we started with giving. So we do sponsor, I think it's the Booster Club, the High School Booster Club. We sponsor every year now by doing a banner at the football field. And I posted it on my story a few weeks ago, and like 50 gym owners were like, oh, that's awesome. It shows our all-star cheerleaders who are also on the high school team who are in the gym. We invite our high schools to showcase. I talked about that at the beginning. We do offer school team training because schools around us do not compete very often. There's only a few high schools that do. Those schools, we have worked with them in the past and given them ridiculously affordable rates. You maybe can't do this if you're a struggling gym that's in the negative every year. But if you have the time and the ability to give them super affordable rates to come train in your gym, do it. I had a coach from a local high school reach out a couple weeks ago, and she's like, I'm a brand new coach. It's been 15 years since I've coached cheerleading, and I could just use some help getting some stunts down, doing choreography for an upcoming routine that we have. And, I had to put myself in her shoes. I'm like, sure, let's come to my gym for the first couple of practices so you guys can stunt with some extra mats, extra safety. I've got different things like we can put some spotting blocks up so you can work pyramid skills without having multiple stunt groups to pull each other down, stuff like that. Let's come to my gym for the safety side for the first couple of practices, but then I will come to your high school gym if you can get the space, because it's going to be really hard for you to mark a routine that you're doing on a gym floor on my 9-panel spring floor. So I'll come to you for that. So you have to put yourself in their shoes and do what you can to help them as well. We offer high school tumbling camps and clinics. We offer a high school tumbling class for all levels so that a full, a group of kids from a high school can come in and tumble together, even if some don't have those skills. Other things, we're going to offer this summer a coaches training clinic for local high school coaches and middle school coaches. On Fridays, last Friday night, I posted a picture of the high school on the sidelines doing a pyramid. And one of our girls who's been a back spot and a base for years is a senior this year. She's an all-star cheerleader, but also on the high school team. And she got to fly a pyramid. And I took a picture and posted it on our Twisters Facebook page. Wear their apparel. It says Warrensburg Cheer, which I ended up buying that domain because it was really smart. But Warrensburg Cheer, or like Warrensburg High School cheerleading, Tiger cheerleading, like I do wear it into the gym from time to time to show my support for the high school teams. We have a marquee. We actually just got, if you guys are coming to the CheerBiz Accelerator, and if you don't know what that is, go to cheerbizaccelerator.com. But we just got a really cool, I don't know, maybe 12 foot, 10 foot, I don't know dimensions, but like this huge LED sign outside of our gym. On Fridays, I took all advertising off of it, and we have a local videographer that did, football Friday Night Lights kind of post. And I asked him if we could put it and cast it up onto our LED screen the entire day on Fridays. And it's got our cheerleaders on it, and it's got the dance team. And anyway, sounds like he actually went out and videoed and did extra video of cheer and dance team so that it could go up on our marquee. Maybe you can offer free open gym every so often that those high school athletes can go to get into your gym. Make sure they have waivers, but offer it. We do a high school tryout clinic every year so that 8th graders and incoming new cheerleaders can come. And my girls who have graduated the program over the years come in and they teach the high school fight song. And actually, we get kids from multiple high schools. And so if I can get somebody that knows the high school fight song from the other schools, they'll take them over and work on their stuff. But otherwise, we teach stunting and we teach tumbling. And maybe you're in California and you're like part of a high school that like, gosh, if you didn't cheer for 5 or 6 years before this, like you're not making a high school team. I would say the majority of the country is not that competitive. It's not as competitive as that for high school and making even a JV team. Next year, we're going to offer to sponsor, they all do crew neck sweatshirts and they all have to pay for them every year. We're going to offer the local high schools that we will provide the crew neck sweatshirt with their high school logo on it or whatever they are wanting to do for their crew necks if we can put our logo on the back and sponsor those. It's going to cost us money, but I also think that the more you can give, the more that you will see a return in that relationship with them. Be their biggest cheerleaders. Guys, be the biggest cheerleaders for the high school programs in your community because Lord knows that a lot of athletic directors and principals and administrators, for them, the football is the fun part. The basketball, the baseball, the whatever is the fun part. But a lot of them don't understand cheerleading and they maybe don't value the athleticism that can come from cheerleading. We've had athletic directors over the years that are like, oh, yeah, cool, cheer team. But man, our football team. Be the biggest cheerleaders for the cheerleaders because a lot of schools do not value them the way that we would. Okay, you guys, so here is my challenge to you. If you have a strained relationship with the local high school coaches, I want you this week, reach out and just set up a meeting. See if you can go have coffee. See if you can bring them lunch one day so you guys can sit down and chat. It doesn't mean that you're going to ask them to pay you a bunch of money to train their athletes or come do school team training or whatever it is that you may want to do. You have to start small. You have to start with a relationship. And maybe the first step is sitting down with that coach and saying, I'm sorry that we've had a strained relationship over the years. I'd like to get to the bottom of why that is so that we can resolve it. And then from there, what can we do to help you guys? How can we help the local team so that you guys look great and you're achieving all of your goals? Guys, position yourself as the experts in cheerleading if you are the experts in cheerleading in your community. Instead of being frustrated that others are not experts, position yourself as the expert and see how you can help. Okay, guys. So thank you for joining me on this episode of the Full Out Cheer podcast. As I mentioned earlier, we have a Cheer Biz Accelerator coming up. At this point, I cannot even tell you which ones are sold out, how many spaces we have left, because they are selling daily. I listened to the CheerBuzz podcast a couple days ago, and Dan had recorded it a few weeks before, and he had said, yeah, we've got openings for the January and blah, blah, blah. And by that time, January was completely sold out and February was halfway sold out. So I'm not even going to theorize where we might be by this time next week because we might be completely sold out. I don't know. But go to cheerbizaccelerator.com. I would love to have you in my community at my gym to do training and do a deep dive into your gym and see how we can help you find the roadblocks and overcome them to meet your goals and get you guys to $1 million revenue. And if you're currently doing $30,000 or $20,000 a year in revenue and you think that's nuts, we had some gyms at our first CheerBiz Accelerator that were in the same position, and we literally wrote out the roadmap for them and helped them figure out how do I possibly grow my gym to where I could even imagine doing $1 million a year in revenue. Okay, you guys. And with that, I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode of the Full Out Cheer podcast.